Chapter 1. The Sketch of a Shadow. The reign over Viridia was a relentless silver curtain, washing the neon glow of the metropolis down the sides of skyscrapers. High above the glittering streets, on a narrow ledge 70 stories up, Alara Vance was a creature of shadow and water. Wind whipped stray strands of dark hair across her face, but her focus was absolute, her movements as fluid and certain as the ink she so often wielded. Ariel, the collector's voice, smooth as polished obsidian, echoed in her memory. Kenji Tanaka's latest acquisition. He thinks his security is art. Prove him wrong. Bring me his masterpiece. Tanaka, a tech mogul with more money than sense, had turned his penthouse into a fortress. Laser grids, acoustic sensors, thermal imaging, a digital symphony of paranoia. For anyone else, it would be impossible. For Alara, it was a blank canvas. She pressed herself flat against the cold glass, her satchel of art supplies a familiar weight on her back. Inside the penthouse, a web of ruby-red lasers crisscrossed the main gallery, each beam a silent, deadly promise. Alara pulled a small, worn sketchbook from her satchel and a stick of charcoal. Her fingers, perpetually stained with ink and graphite, moved with preternatural speed. On the page, she didn't draw a key or a bomb. She drew a bird, a tiny, impossible hummingbird with wings of shimmering graphite. As she finished the last feather, she felt a familiar thrum of power resonate from her core, a hum that flowed down her arm and into the sketchbook. She channeled it, a whisper of intent. Fly, the sketch shimmered. The graphite lines thickened, gaining depth and form. With a silent flutter, the hummingbird peeled itself off the paper, no longer a two-dimensional drawing, but a three-dimensional creature of living shadow and dust. It zipped through a tiny gap in the window's seal, a silent phantom in the high-teeth tomb. Alara watched through the glass as her creation navigated the laser grid with impossible agility. It darted left, right, up, down, its path a perfect map of the security system's fatal flaws. It landed on the main control panel, its tiny charcoal beak tapping a specific sequence on the guide. The ruby web winked out of existence. A smirk touched Alara's lips. This was her magic, her domain of artistic creation. The world was her gallery, and reality was her medium. Slipping through the no-one-locked balcony door, she entered the sterile white expanse of the penthouse. The air was cold, filtered, and smelled of nothing. It was the kind of clean that felt suffocating. Her gaze swept the room, ignoring the authenticated Picassos and genuine Matisses. The collector wasn't interested in public masterpieces. He craved the unique, the impossible, the things born of the city's hidden magic. Her target was in the center of the room, displayed on a pressurized pedestal within a glass case. But it wasn't a painting, a sculpture, or a jewel. Alara's breath hitched. It was a heart, not a human heart, but a crystalline object the size of her fist, glowing with a soft internal light. It pulsed in a slow, hypnotic rhythm, intricate facets of what looked like obsidian and quartz shifting within its core. It seemed to breathe, and with every beat the low hum of power she felt within herself resonated in reply. A call answering a call. This was no mere act. This was something alive. A shiver of unease, cold and sharp, traced its way down her spine. The collector had told her it was a rare, uncut gem. He had lied. He lied often, but usually with more subtlety. This blatant deception meant the object was far more important and far more dangerous than he'd let on. Her mission was clear: acquire the asset. Hesitation was a luxury she couldn't afford. The collector did not tolerate failure. With nimble fingers, she dismantled the case's lock, her mind racing. What was this thing? The moment the glass cover lifted, the rhythmic pulse of the crystal heart intensified. The air in the room grew heavy, thick with a sudden oppressive chill. Alara reached out, her ink-stained fingers closing around the object. A jolt, white-hot and electric, shot up her arm. It wasn't painful, it was a connection. A flood of alien sensations, ancient sorrow, cold duty, and an unyielding sense of inevitability crashed against her mind before receding, leaving her dizzy. The top's soft glow brightened, bonding to her touch, and that's when she saw him, in the darkest corner of the room, A shadow detached itself from the others. It wasn't the flicker of the light. It was a solidifying presence, a pillar of darkness coalescing into the form of a man. Tall, imposing, dressed in a tailored gray coat, he seemed to absorb the light around him. His face was grim, his eyes the color of a winter storm, and they were locked directly on the crystal heart in her hand. "You should not have touched that, thief." His voice was low, gravelly, like stones grinding together. It held no anger, only a profound, weary finality. Every survival instinct Elara had honed in the city's unforgiving underbelly screamed, this wasn't a security guard. He hadn't been hiding, he'd been waiting. Part of the room's very fabric. It's a bit late for warnings, she shot back, her mind already sketching escape routes. She tightened her grip on the crystal heart. This belongs to my employer now. It belongs to no one, the man said, taking a slow step forward. A domaine core is not a bauble to be collected. It is a cancer to be excised. He started walking towards her, his steps unhurried, inevitable. Elara reacted on pure instinct. She snatched a piece of chalk from her satchel and in a single, fluid motion, drew a snarling wolf's head on the polished marble floor. Power surged through her and the chalk lines erupted, forming a spectral, snarling beast that lunged at the man. The man in gray didn't even break a stride. He simply raised his right hand, pulling off a single black leather glove to reveal a hand that was unnaturally pale, like polished bone. As the jaws of the chalk wolf snapped at him, he met them with his open palm. There was no impact, no sound of a magical struggle. The moment the spectral wolf touched his skin, it dissolved, not into chalk dust, but into nothing. It was erased from existence, a flicker of gray ash, the only evidence it had ever been there. Alara's blood ran cold. He kept coming. Your petty tricks are meaningless against true entropy. Panic flared in her chest. She flung her sketchbook open, her mind racing. A wall? A cage? Useless. He would simply unmake it. She needed a diversion, something he couldn't just touch. Her eyes darted around the room, Tanaka's priceless ite. A wicked grin spread across her face. With a charcoal stick clutched in her fist, she poured her will into the room itself, not just a page. She sketched in the air, imagining the changes. The serene face of the woman in the matisse warped into a screaming banshee. The stoic bronze sculptor twisted, its limbs elongating into grasping claws. The very concept of the art around them rebelled. Canvases wept tears of thick black paint. Colors bled into the air, forming a chaotic, disorienting storm of abstract beauty and horror. For the first time, the man paused, his cold eyes scanning the animated chaos. It was the opening Elara needed. She didn't run for the door. She ran for the window, pulling a special pencil from her satchel, its graphite core laced with industrial diamond dust. She slammed its tip against the reinforced window, overlooking the glittering abyss of Viridia. She didn't sketch an object, she sketched a concept. A flaw, a single, perfect fracture line. Power, raw and desperate, flared from her. The sketch became real. A hairline crack appeared on the glass, then spiderwebbed outwards with an audible groan, the sound of tearing reality. Behind her, the man moved through the artistic maelstrom, his pale hand turning weeping canvases and grasping statues to dust. He was too close. Without a second thought, Elara pivoted and kicked. The window exploded outwards into the storm-lashed night. Shards of glass rained down into the darkness like deadly confetti. For a heart-stopping moment, she was suspended between the sterile white room and the raging sky. Then, clutching the pulsating domaine core to her chest, she leaped into the abyss. The wind was a physical blow, tearing the breath from her lungs. Rain stung her face. 70 stories of nothing yawned beneath her. And from the shattered window of the penthouse, the silent figure with the hand of death watched her fall. A gray sentinel against a backdrop of beautiful chaos. The heist was over. The hunt had just begun.